that? Welcome to week 5 of Ray's Tech Tips. Today we're going to be talking about
flippers, how to rebuild them.
Okay.
What parts are needed? New parts.
Do you have parts?
Yes.
Show us some parts, would you?
New parts. Several drawers of coils. These happen to be the Bally coils. And we're going to need 11 629s, which is what goes in the Terminator 2 we're rebuilding. These are early Williams and Gottliebs. Here getting into some Data East flipper coils. These are just Gottlieb coils, crossover charts.
My lord, how often do you encounter a coil that you don't stock?
Not too often. I keep adding to it. You have to have them, coils. Coils get exercised as they get used, and the varnish windings you see here shrink and expand, and then that rubs off the varnish, the shellac, and contrary to belief, these are not bare wires, and they have a coating on them. As these things get used, they expand and contract, and then it rubs its own coil.
And then it shorts.
Yes, and then the ohms, which are readings across the coils here. This is a dual coil, that's why there's 3 terminals. There's a pair of large ones for the power stroke of the flipper, and then there's a thin one, and then it goes to the middle pole for your hold. So there's 2 different windings in here.
And of course it won't generally fail all of a sudden. It'll fail slowly, and
right.
It'll just lose performance.
Yeah, you definitely lose performance, and then eventually you'll
get a dead short at some point.
Yeah, you'll blow a fuse or ruin a flipper control board. These are flipper parts for repairs that just need a broken part, that don't need a rebuild. Suppose you had a fairly new link and you just had the connecting bracket break. I carry individual parts.
But more often than not, you do full rebuilds because it's all shot.
Yeah, because nobody really... these are all rebuild kits. You get one of these for each rebuild kit. And this is, I threw a lot out. I don't have any room anymore, but there must be 100 of these.
What size is that? I'm going to put those on eBay.
There's more flipper parts up here. Individual parts, sleeves, hubs. New hardware, because the hardware is always...
wrong.
Yeah. And then there's some roll pins for individual repair, and then you got Bally and Gottlieb use these springs to take up the play between the coil and the end stop on some of their machines. Williams never did that. They machined it and made it close enough they didn't use that. Gottlieb did not, neither did the early Ballys. If you don't put that in, the coil bangs around back and forth.
Lose power.
Sloppy, you lose power. Any play in any of that linkage at all, any movement, other than what is there to make it pivot or go straight, is going to take power away from the flipper. And again, here's rebuild kits from here down for Data East, Bally, Williams. The Gottliebs I'll show you back there. And we're going to be doing a WPC, so these are the individual kits I get. There's drawers full of, each one does a game.
For a pair.
Of 2 pair of flippers. And this particular one is for these games, Williams and Bally.
Looks like a Steve Young pinball resource kit.
Yeah. And this
Flip 05, okay.
Yeah. It's the Williams Flip 05 kit. And this is 1980 through 91. We're doing a Terminator 2, so that is a 91 game. This would be the flipper kit for it.
Okay.
And, these are Flip 05s. This is a Marco kit, and this would be for the same thing as Williams. Is offered by Pinball Resource. This is Flip 01. This fits the old stuff. Mostly EMs here, although it comes into some solid states the last 2 years or so here. 67 through December 79. And you can see the difference. They're using the fiber metal link instead of plastic. Different constructed kit. The end stops are different. The hubs are different. They're longer out at the end. there's differences. You can't cross one over to the other. So basically, these kits are, you know, 1, 5, and 6 covers all the machines. There is no 3 or 4, by the way.
Okay.
This will cover from 92, where that leaves off, to 99, last pin made. Data East Stearns, Segas are in here. I have extra plates because sometimes screws break off in these. They tend to, for some reason, Sega and Stern was Loctite in these quite a bit, and when you go to take anything off, even a hub, you break off screws.
And of course you can fix that, but not very well in the field.
Right. These are the kits offered by Marco, and these will rebuild Data East Segas, and this was when they used the plastic thing as end of stroke trip.
Ooh.
Yeah. This is the solid metal link they had. You can see it's billet steel.
Neat.
Instead of stamped bent over steel. Everybody had a different opinion on things, I guess.
And they all stopped.
Yeah, they were all wanting. This would be a Stern kit. You can see it's stamped, folded over steel. Has a billet center, but they started to do some of this. This will fit your Sterns and later Segas. This is for Data East. So this is what the kit would look like for that. And the coils are back there, and then you have individual parts as well here, end of strokes. Their hubs are different than Williams. They have reliefs for the screws here. You got to use that. You cannot use a Williams hub, which is totally circular. It's the same dimension, but you have to have these hole reliefs in the hub itself.
Or it'll be in there crooked.
It won't work, yeah. Well, you can't fit it in there.
Or you can take a pair of dikes and cut it so that it's...
Also, end stops are different. You can see the hole diameter is way different than Bally Williams.
Okay.
You cannot make this hole bigger easily. This is a grade 8 forged part. If you go to use a drill on it, you're going to lose your drill. Because this stuff is hardened steel. That's why it takes the banging. This is not mild steel.
Right.
So you're not going to do it. Plus the plate is physically bigger. It's a 16th or 8th inch bigger.
Now if that breaks, you can just weld it back together, right?
Yeah, sure. Like we see. These are for early Ballys. They're specific. Here you have more kits. Early Bally solid states. In this case, it's Flippo 1 does, well, Steve wasn't sure. Early years.
Really don't know, yeah, through Flickr.
Through 12 of 74. Flickr is an early EM game. Flippo 1s are very old kits. You notice the hub diameter is different and smaller. Their links are this steel.
Not very big.
No, a lot different. And then you've got Flippo 4, you're coming into the years mostly people are familiar with. This is electronic solid state. Rolling Stones through Truck Stop. So it's 80 through 88. They changed a bit. Their hubs got bigger. They're not the same as Williams. They're out, top part's longer, bottom part's longer.
No, so those are the roller ones and goofy things.
These are inlines, yeah. And then they have the brackets, the bell cranks, and then the end stops. It's a whole kit. You put in all of this. They even give you hardware. Put in end of strokes, everything. Nice. When you rebuild, you use it all. That's a Flippo 4. This is an 03. This is 75 through 80. This was a transitional period from EMs to solid states. Much like this kit, only they have fiber links instead of the inline.
Well, Steve does a nice job of putting those kits together.
Yeah, he does. And he also offers a mini kit. If you really don't want to do the whole rebuild and you just want to freshen it up, you get end stops and you get armatures is what these are called. You get hardwares and you get return springs. You don't do end of stroke switches. You don't do hubs, you know. So he offers a little mini kit. They're a lot cheaper. Most machines are in need of this. If you've already done this and you play your game a lot, then you just freshen it up with this. That's the common sense about doing the mini kit over the full kit. This is what most of these guys don't carry. This is all game-specific hardware to arcade machines, down to nylon stop.
Yeah, stop nuts. Okay, yeah.
So this is all unique and special sizes.
Little short
This is-
eights.
Yes, this is not just something you go to a hardware store and buy. These are all game specific. You have screws with retaining lock washers on them. You won't find that in a hardware store. And these don't come off. You want to have this because if you're needing a lock washer, you're going to have to...
I stepped on it.
Yeah, you're going to have
We'll step on something else later.
You're going to have it retained. If you try to hold all this while you're putting it together, it's nice to have this retained. It's a little incidental that makes a difference while you're in there. Drawer here, I have Unmarked. I've got
Unmarked would go on what a modern Bally.
yeah. Unmarked is if you don't really
Like if
care.
you got a Theater Magic or something, that gets an Unmarked, right?
If you don't care that, you know, like, all right, there's the W. Williams trademark stamped on it. If you don't care about that, the Unmarked or what the Unmarked were made for is if a guy is on the road with parts and can't afford to have this,
The correct stuff.
this,
That East, yeah.
Capcom,
Sure.
Specialty, he could just use Unmarked and just have
Move
two
on.
colors
Yeah.
and move on. It's practical for a repair person that
Well,
doesn't
for
have,
maybe a route guy.
yeah, that's correct. It doesn't have the money to and or care about specific. So in this case, we're going to use
We're working on a Williams.
white W. This is the second drawer.
Gottlieb's. Oh, yeah, Gottlieb's.
Gottlieb shells for System 80s and System 1s, and then this is System 3s. They have the, they break once in a while. The welded shaft assembly. These are Bally welded shafts. These are the shells for Bally's are here. They're different than Gottlieb. They're flat across.
So you got the black Bally's.
Yeah. And then these are early Williams and Stern. These are Stern. I had early Williams in here as well. Early Williams were changeable. They weren't always molded on the shaft, and that's what.
That's for what?
That's a
Sea Witch? Would
yeah.
Sea Witch take that?
Right. I have short ones. And I have color ones.
Those are aftermarket. That never went on a game, did it?
No, these were made by several companies. Bay Area is one of them.
Yeah.
These are blood red for Dracula. Then I have your special old EM.
Yeah.
And more special old EM. And then I even have...
You got the banana flippers,
yeah.
nice.
This is what I was talking about for the Williams. It used the shell similar to this, of course curved for this, but it went in like this. And Stern copied this off Williams. They didn't copy Gottlieb's because Gottlieb's are way different. First off, the thing has holes in it, and the shaft length is way different.
Sure.
But this parallels Williams in length and design. Williams was short to change from a changeable flipper and start molding like early Bally. You know, this is the same bat, only this is changeable and this is not. Bally started to do this instead of the extra cost of what it takes to do this kind of stuff. You know, it just takes too much extra money to make this when you could do that.
Yeah, have it molded and just,
Yeah.
Sure.
Stay here. I'll be back.
The local curse.
Don't get your panties all in a bunch.
You can see that it's just nothing but problems. Wrong screw here. There's a deck screw there. In fact, Ray, would you take that apron off of there? And of course, once it has this sticker on here, you can...
Get that crap out of here.
What is it that you look at? You know, flippers is one of the first things that you look at after line cord, because it's an interface. It's the most direct interface between the player and the game.
Yeah, that's right. I look at the wiring and what was done solder-wise, and I don't know what was going on there, but they should have replaced the coil. Somebody should have anyway. This type of thing is what you're looking for. You don't want to leave it in there because it's poor work, and it doesn't really even have all the conductors on it. It's nothing that broke off during use either. These were never soldered on. That's what that is. It's what it should look like. The diodes and The solder work should look better than this. I don't know. You want to see that there's no play between the armature and the bell crank link.
Because that represents wear and again
Right.
loss
And
of
this
power.
is slightly worn. You know, you can do it as your own reference. This is really
What the
deep.
Lord is
Well,
going on there?
there's probably stuff loose because hardware wasn't replaced and it either broke or came off. And this play adjustment up and down should be about 20 thousandths. That's about 80. That takes away from performance. This one is set about right. There's actually a gauge that was made years ago you can use. A little plastic gauge, but the rule of thumb is you just want about 20 thousandths. You don't want to go more than 30.
So snug and back it off a little
all.
bit.
That's all.
What generation of machine would be this setup?
Mostly 91 to 99 would be this type of setup. They changed it a little bit. First off, this game uses the bell crank return spring incorporated on the shaft. Later on they did away with that because it actually interferes with...
Sure, it binds.
Yeah, they did away with it, and that's what this tab's for. And they give you a tension spring that goes on this tab, which actually hooks onto the bracket for here. There's a hole here you can use. So you could actually change this over and use this hole to return it.
Are we going to do that?
Yeah, you can. Since this bracket has the holes, you can do that. Some of these early games did not have the holes in the end of stroke bracket, so those are the ones you cannot. This has the holes, and you hook it on the end and go out to the tab.
Yeah, you can see that
They folded the tabs back.
Yeah, the tabs are actually even there.
If I don't use this, I take these off. I don't leave them on there. You don't need it. There's a real thick washer here. You don't need to leave the steel on there. And I don't fold it back. You just don't need it. You take it off. But you have to take your nut off. That's a little extra work. What they've done, though, aside from that, is they've got away from having to need the Allen wrench to hold this end, which is very hard when the thing's together because you can see you can't get to it. You actually have to put it in here. Position your flipper up top, put it in here, and then tighten this up. It's very hard. They did away with that. This is a welded washer onto the end of the shaft, and then you just turn this. That is self-retained with a little cutout there.
Nice. So that's an aftermarket.
New generation.
That's an aftermarket improvement. Nice.
Yep, yep. You still need your Allen wrench to take this end off, which is the end stop for the flipper armature. They usually get pounded and they're dished. Some of them even break the stud off and they're loose. You see this dish shape, that means that's worn. You lose the height too. You lose the height, plus this gets dished. And
What's that cause?
well, it generally dumps dirt down in there, and it also causes the flipper to go too far.
Oh yeah.
If it goes over center, then it'll bind up. But if it keeps pounding that, it actually breaks the rivet on the other end. And it will also mushroom this metal out as it's hitting this. It makes it bigger, and sometimes they don't even come away from the sleeve.
Yeah, they wedge themselves in there.
Right.
So, yeah, as a player, again, walk up to a machine, you're playing, you hit the flippers, and the left flippers, you see it's going up, you know, 1/4 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch beyond the right flipper. That's probably somebody replaced one end stop and not the other.
Next, we get into coils. Besides from the ugliness of that, as long as it's functional, I suppose you could tolerate it. But the health of a coil is determined by the sleeve. They do give you separate sleeves in the kit. If you're just wanting to rebuild without coils, I hardly ever do that because the coils I find are generally not acceptable to leave in the game. They give you extra sleeves in that kit, which you can use if you have a good coil. The sleeve should push out by hand. and you shouldn't be able to have to pry it. What this means when this sleeve tightens up like that, that means that this plastic spool is now been shrunk by the windings, which are right here. All a coil is a bunch of windings. This is a 2-field coil. That's why you have 3 terminals. The power winding is inside of this winding. This winding is the hold. This is a flipper hold winding. When these get exercised through use, they contract and expand, and then that shrinks against this. And then if this shrinks enough, the armature will not go in the sleeve very free anymore. It'll bind because that is getting smaller. So you lose performance and power, and of course the coil health is based on this.
Well, that's really is just a sign. I guess the other thing you could do is ohm it out and see where it stands.
But when you see one bind up the sleeve, that means this is it's like a tire. It's near the end of its use.
Sure. Well, the easy answer here is you're going through the trouble of rebuilding your flipper. Don't be a cheap jerk. Do
the end stroke, because you can see that it's not in a good shape. People have left this in because it still happened to work. Pretty soon it will actually wear and break this right off, but this pitting, you're losing power through these points.
So on this unit, the power actually travels through that switch.
Closed switch, they're tungsten, and you can see the new points. Why not put this in? It's 50 cents. Also, as this bangs on this end stop,
it does the same thing as
flattens this out, and this gets mushroom shaped. Well, when this gets mushroom shaped long enough, it's going to bind going through the sleeve. So there's a lot of reasons to rebuild and replace parts that are in this condition. They even give you the rubber end stops in the kit, so you can put them in. They give you new hubs, they give you new hardware. There's very little hardware you actually use over again. What I usually do when I'm doing a kit, well, what I always do is take the plate off, and I like to wash this. I like to, because you have to take this off to get the hub and the other parts off, because there are nuts on the other end of this to retain the hub. And you don't just pull these screws out, the nuts will fall out. You need that, or else this will come loose. Just about like what happened here.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what that hub looks like over there, actually.
All right, pull it apart. They wear. Look, it's circular.
Oh yeah,
and
that's shot.
You got a steel shaft rotating, plus it gets dirt introduced into it,
which becomes sandpaper to it.
Yep. So you have a worn, wobbly like this. We didn't even take this out yet and look at it. There's supposed to be zero play here.
That's shot. Throw it out.
This is like a clamp, and it's supposed to expand back depending on how hard somebody leaned on it.
Kind of does sometimes.
You sometimes. You loosen your 3/8 and then you can rotate it and get it out. If you can't do that, you loosen this up further, and you can
take your least favorite screwdriver.
Yeah, just add a gap in here. Just twist it like this, and if you twist it, you can get it out, because otherwise you'll be in there and you'll pinch your fingers and it's terrible to get apart. This was probably broke and had parts missing when it was reconditioned, because that's unusual breakage, and these generally don't loosen up unless you leave one out. It's hard to say about it, but this don't break during normal play, but if you allow this to come loose or this is worn, it'll do this later on. I've seen it where they all fall out. These are capacitors that are on the early games. They discontinued this after 91, 92, somewhere in there. and they determined that they don't need this cap. What this does is this holds energy. It prevents these points from doing that, pitting like that. It's supposed to prevent early wear of these.
Okay, are we putting those back on?
Yes, you put them back on because
Okay.
the game was designed that way. And these are the replacements. And they use a shrink sleeve on here to keep the bare wire. And then of course the kit even gives you the tie wrap
Nice.
to put that back on.
Well, this one didn't have a tie wrap, so
No,
how do you know where it goes?
It goes here.
Okay.
In fact, there goes
That's it.
the wire under there, and you're supposed to tie wrap it. It's the right value, but it's a little too big.
Okay,
This
so
is
the
why you correct it. Doesn't matter what it is or where it came from. You want to correct stuff like this.
and of course, once it has this sticker on here, you can.
Nice.
You guys suck.
I will replace stuff like this.
I didn't even see that yet.
Well, you didn't look far enough. If you keep looking at this, you're going to see what people neglected when they did this.
That probably works.
Yeah, it does work, sure. But I don't like it. I wouldn't leave it.
Oh, it's broke now. What's your plan of action here?
Well, do one side at a time. Do this side first. Take off the 8 screws that hold the plate on. Take off these 2 screws that hold the end of stroke. Save the little bracket on the back, the nut plate, and the screws, because they're special, length and diameter. And then you would take the assembly out, and it would hang with the coil, and then you'd wash the plate, replace the hub, replace the rubber end stop, which just pries right out.
I've seen games that's missing.
Then you would put your new hardware on, and then after you wash it, put your new hardware on, and then you would replace the coil and stop and bolt on the EOS switch, and then you do your soldering after all that is bolted on, because you can attach all of it, and then it's easier to do everything in place. Rather, you don't want to solder a coil hanging like this. It's too hard.
Yeah.
So if you're rebuilding this, you put everything all back together, then you do your soldering after you bolt the plate back in, then all you do is put your flipper bat back in.
Okay.
That's the correct way to do it. It's the easiest way to do it.
Sounds like a piece of cake. That takes about, what, 5 minutes?
Yeah. Now, flipper rebuilds can take about, if you're experienced with them, you can do a pair in a half hour to 45 minutes. If you're not, you might need 2 hours. And you have to have all the stuff set up with you if you're going to be running around and going back and forth to your service shop or your truck or whatever for parts. Then
Your
it can
used
take
parts pile.
Yeah, you have to have everything set and ready. It is suggestible to work with a magnetic nut driver. If the machine's in a game, you're going to be leaning over it.
And you're going to drop a screw somewhere where you can't get to it.
You have to find it. These just unbolt, and these are the nuts. They're 5/16.
Okay.
And you can see why I replaced the shafts. They definitely wear
That
out.
thing whooped.
Yeah, they wear out inside and they wobble. What happens to them is they don't wear in a circular pattern. They wear in an oblong football pattern, because the load on the flipper is generally mid-stroke when you're hitting a pinball. Well, that's always going to load a certain part of this. And then that's why they're going to wear oblong, and that's where you get your resistance.
And it'll naturally be biased one way or the other just because of the
Right,
way the
so
assembly's
you'll
made.
want to put a new one in, and you're going to gain years of strength back, getting rid of the dirty oblong hub.
Nice.
That's why they give them to you in the kit.
That's why I don't play in that league anymore. I can't stand those worn out games.
I'll be back.
This is it done. Soldered on my EOS capacitor. So all I got to do is go to my flipper switch control here and 2 points here. And your hardware is done. Plates washed, all of it's new, ready to go. All I'm doing here is cleaning the wood, in the area. It makes it a little cleaner. Just a little closer.
So you did the more modern spring return on there.
Yeah, I don't really care much for those other ones, although they're okay. When that's the only one you can use, but when you have a crossover new style plate and it has the holes here, that's great. This was a transitional year for that. Some of this production might have went this way instead of this way. And as you can see, they use it throughout the machine anyway. It's on your up kickers, your slings. They don't do this. They always do the torsion spring, but it's just a matter of choice, you know. But these aren't used as often. This is, so this is a more reliable return. And what I mean by reliable is these will break right in the center or down toward the end or both. Then you'll have a piled up spring and it'll bind against itself. And you won't know it because it's hard to look at while it's in there. So these will break. That's why they went to these, to get rid of the problem. Quarter-inch hex. It's nice to have a magnetic, because if you're working in a machine, this is not going to be at this angle. It's going to be the other way. So you're more prone to drop a screw.
Yeah.
We're just going to put this on to show you the rest of what you do here, because this playfield on this end is not ready.
Yeah, we'll be obviously taking everything off of there.
From the step here, you want to set your flipper angle based on the in-lane guide, and that's where you set it. These guide pegs can be a rough guide. They should line up with the end of the rubber, and then that'll give you a straight down here. But you still have to adjust this, or else you're going to have ball hop. And that's annoying to players, because when a ball gets to the end here and hits this, if it's not perfect across, it'll hop as much as a quarter to a half inch, and then you don't know where to hit it, because it's like a free air. Although the ball's on the table, it's like a free air shot. You just whack at it. You don't have it doesn't roll down to where you want, because it's missing some of the strike point, and that's where your angle shots, your back shots are. And that's kind of important, and most people don't even do that tune-up.
I'm back.
This is the one to do yet. This is what the rebuilt one looks like. All you have to do at this point is put your wiring back on to your end-of-stroke switch and your flipper coil. The first step in this case, since these have been poorly done, is to, and what I mean by that is most of the conductors are missing out of the strands here. I mean, half of them are still in there. That comes from use, and also from when somebody did it originally, they didn't solder all of them back on. They just put on like they did here. They just unsoldered it, put it back.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to unsolder it and put it back?
Right, and then you can keep...
No, we're not.
No, you cut them. You got to keep your wire order, or you'll blow a fuse right away, because the diodes only go one direction. So some of them have dual wires on. We'll start with this end, and you cut it off back as close as you can to get all the strand conductors. You're going to want a pair of wire strippers. And for a double wire, you're going to go back a little further than a single wire. Reason for it is you want to be able to twist them together, because it's too difficult to hold both wires on there while you're soldering it. So you twist them together. You have your flux and your solder. Heat the wire up, feed the solder on it, and you want to leave it with a little extra on it without dripping. And then you go to this and you tin this. That's what it's called. So you pile up some on that, and then once these are together, you don't need that kind of length, you cut it off. Because too long is sloppy and it hangs out. You want to solder it close. Just about like this here. And that's what you should do. But you don't want to mix these up because they go certain places on the flipper control board and you'll blow a fuse when you go to use the flipper. Also not a good idea to use the plug-on connectors on these.
Yeah, see, they're kind of built for them, but
toward the later production of Williams, they did start using those, but they regretted it because they get loose and they don't hold on to the terminal. Soldering is really the only way. This mechanism goes through a lot of bangs and vibrations during play, and they get loose and fall off. A lot of times even the wiring breaks itself.
well, we see that in a lot of locations, like Gottlieb flipper buttons.
Right. If you don't do this way, you're going to shorten the life of what it's going to be by a lot. These are all 18 gauge wires. You can see some of your working coils, they have 18 on one end and 24 or 22 gauge on the other end. These break a lot. Flippers are all consistently one size, and you should keep it that way. You shouldn't use thinner wires on this end here for the end of the stroke. You should keep it at the 16 gauge or 18. It depends on the vinyl. Some of your vinyl coating is deceiving. It will make the wiring look thicker inside, but when you go to strip that, you'll tell what it is. Mystic about it. You just want to keep your wiring consistent. Sometimes you'll see these have been replaced so many times people will throw the original wiring away because it's too short and they'll put this in. You should keep it the same vinyl diameter to be consistent with it. But this is the correct way to do a flipper rebuild from beginning to end. It's sort of an advanced repair or maintenance issue in the machines because of the mechanical and electronic finesse you need to do it. I make it look easy with the soldering, but these wires get hot. Some people can't hold these until they cool off like this. You're dealing with 100 or 2 degrees here, maybe 300. So some people will choose to hold it with a pair of pliers or something, or tweezers, because you can't. But you can't put the wire on and put the soldering iron, it'll fling away because the wiring is tensioned. So you have to hold it close to the ends. You have to tolerate heat.
Well, it looked easy.
After doing so many, it does get easy. Thanks for watching.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Hi, we hope you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Want to know what's coming next? Go like us on Facebook right now. You can keep up to date with all of us here at the shop and what we've been up to. Thank you for watching.
What is that?